The movie begins when a male veterinarian who runs a veterinary clinic in Seoul suddenly gets a phone call from his neighbor in the village informing him that his grandfather is in trouble. The handsome doctor named Han Ji-yul immediately rushed to the village to meet his grandfather because Ji-yul's grandparents were the only family he had after his parents died a few years ago. Ji-yul then borrowed a car from his coworkers and drove straight to his village to meet his grandfather and ensure he was okay. Along the way to the village, Ji-yul was worried because he couldn't contact his grandfather and grandmother and was afraid that they were injured or sick. After driving for hours and traveling a long way, Ji-yul finally arrived at a small village close to the green mountainous area where he lived as a child. The weather that day was quite cloudy, and the village began to rain heavily, which put Ji-yul in an even worse mood. Upon his arrival at his grandparents' house, Ji-yul tried to call his grandparents from behind the fence as the gate was locked. Realizing that no one answered his call, Ji-yul intended to climb over the gate to check on his grandparents. Still, his actions were immediately stopped by a policewoman, An Ja-young, who was patrolling the area. Ja-young thought that Ji-yul was a thief because lately there was a thief who often targeted the homes of the elderly. Ji-yul explained that he was the grandson of the owner of the house, but Ja-young couldn't believe him, so she asked him to show his ID. After checking Ji-yul's ID and confirming that he wasn't a criminal, Ja-young let go of his hand and told him that his grandfather's house had been empty since yesterday. Ji-yul thought that Ja-young knew the locations of his grandparents, so he urged her to tell him where his grandparents had immediately. But instead of answering Ji-yul's question, Ja-young is surprised to know that the person in front of her now used to be her little friend. Shortly after that, Ja-young's male police colleague, Yoon Gun-mo, came to the place and immediately slammed Ji-yul until he fainted because he thought that Ji-yul wanted to hurt Ja-young. Moments later, Ji-yul woke up from his unconscious and was surprised to find that he was at his grandfather's veterinary clinic. Ja-young and a nurse at the clinic then told Ji-yul that his grandparents were currently on vacation in Europe and were fine. Ji-yul's grandfather asked a nurse named Jong Se-ryeon, who had previously contacted him, to dramatize the call so that he would be willing to return to the village and take his grandfather's place at his veterinary clinic during their vacation. Ji-yul's grandfather understood that he was currently practicing at a veterinary clinic in Seoul. Still, Ji-yul's grandfather felt that a veterinary clinic in the village was very important for the villagers, who mostly had farm animals or pets. Hearing this, Ji-yul decided to stay at his grandfather's house and would work at the veterinary clinic for the next few months. After the incident, Ja-young offered to drive Ji-yul home as an apology because her police colleague had made him faint. On the way, Ji-yul contacted his colleague, Jun-young, to find a replacement to work at a veterinary clinic in Seoul for the next few months, and explained his current situation. After learning about Ji-yul's situation, Jun-young agreed and said that he would send all of his belongings to the village so that he wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. In the car, Ja-young occasionally looked at Ji-yul and wondered if he recognized her as his childhood friend or not. Because Ja-young was not focused and kept staring at Ji-yul, she accidentally nudged a young man and made him fall into the rice field. But fortunately, the young man named Song Hyun was fine, and Ja-young didn't have to worry about getting into trouble, because Song Hyun was her best friend since childhood. After Ja-young apologized and made sure that Song Hyun wasn't hurt, she continued on her way. They then stopped at a chicken farm after Ja-young got a report that the farm owner had caught a dog that kept eating his chicks for the past few days. Seeing that one of the dog's legs was injured by an iron trap, Ji-yul took the poor dog to the veterinary clinic to treat the scratches on the dog's leg. Ji-yul also housed the dog at his clinic for the time being until he could find the puppy's mother. Ji-yul's first day working in the village is not going to be easy because when he about to go to the veterinary clinic, he accidentally slips and falls into a rice field. Ji-yul also has to treat an injured goat that keeps running and meets some middle-aged women in the village who ask him too many questions. Fortunately, Ja-young realizes that Ji-yul is still not used to the villagers' interactions, and helps advise them to limit themselves so they don't invade his privacy. Ji-yul still needs to understand why Ja-young seems to care so much about him, and he gets even more confused when she pays more attention to him. Later that night, Ji-yul finds a letter in his grandfather's room apologizing to him for what happened recently. Ji-yul's grandfather said he just wanted to make his wife happy before it was too late, and to have beautiful memories with his beloved wife. Ji-yul also understood his grandfather's decision because he knew that his grandmother had dreamed of traveling the world for a long time. On the other hand, Ja-young recalled the memories she had with Ji-yul in the past. Ja-young used to be Ji-yul's close friend, and they often spent time together when they were kids. But the good times of friendship didn't last long, and they had to part ways after Ji-yul and his family decided to move to Seoul. Ja-young understands that maybe Ji-yul still can't remember those memories and hasn't realized that she is his childhood friend. But she is still trying to stay close to Ji-yul and hopes he can remember all their memories again. Ja-young is a police officer who can always be relied on by the villagers, and many villagers love and care for her. Jae-young has helped many villagers solve various problems and even helped ease the work of the elderly in the village. When Ji-yul was having trouble injecting vaccines into the farm animals, Jae-young was happy to help him because she was used to helping Ji-yul's grandfather vaccinate the farm animals. After Jae-young took Ji-yul and completed the task at the farm, they went to a plantation and rested at a substation where the villagers used to drink coffee together. On that occasion, Ji-yul reunites with Song Hyun, whom Jae-young had bumped into the other day, and they begin to get to know each other. Song Hyun invited Ji-yul to shake hands and introduced himself as the head of the youth association at the peach plantation before he finally invited him to enjoy coffee together. But Ji-yul refused the invitation and chose to immediately return home as if he wanted to close himself and avoid interacting with the villagers. Seeing Ji-yul's attitude, which still continues to limit himself to the villagers, suddenly makes Song Hyun think that he is arrogant, especially since Ji-yul also comes from Seoul, a big city. But even so, Song Hyun still tried to understand him. The next day, Ji-yul is back to doing various difficult jobs at the village farm until he gets overwhelmed because he is not used to all the tasks. The situation worsens when a thief hanging around the village comes to Ji-yul's grandfather's house and intends to steal his belongings. Fortunately, Ji-yul acted quickly and managed to catch the thief before he could escape from his grandfather's house. Ji-yul then called Jae-young for help and took the thief to the police station to deal with the thief immediately. The culprit who committed theft in the village recently was a high school youth from the next village. The young man admitted that he never stole things that were too expensive, but he stole some money from several houses because he wanted to buy a birthday present for his girlfriend. After that, the middle-aged women from each village learned that the person who caught the thief was Ji-yul. They started scrambling to match him with the beautiful girls in their village. After having a bad day, Ji-yul, frustrated by the chaos, yells and confirms to them that he already has a girlfriend in Seoul. Jae-young then offers to take Ji-yul home considering that he is a victim of theft and she wants to make sure he can return home safely. But Ji-yul, too tired to interact with anyone, refused Jae-young's offer and immediately hurried to leave. Before Ji-yul left, Jae-young asked why he kept shutting himself off from the villagers and always refused help from the people around him. Jae-young then asked Ji-yul to recall the good memories he had with his grandparents in the village so that he could be comfortable living there, but he instead said that he never had good memories in the village. Hearing that, Jae-young felt very sad and disappointed, knowing that the memories she considered sweet memories were not the best memories Ji-yul had. Later that evening, when Jae-young and Song Hyun were relaxing in a coffee shop at the peach farm, she told him about her problems. Jae-young realized that the same memory could leave different impressions on other people's memories, and she began to wonder if she was the only one who liked the childhood memories between herself and Ji-yul, while he might feel the opposite. The next morning, Jae-young drops off a boy named Sun-dong who lives across from Ji-yul's grandfather's house, forcing her to meet Ji-yul again. Since what Ji-yul said at the police station yesterday, Jae-young decided to limit herself from getting too close to him and even started to act indifferent in front of him. In the afternoon, when Ji-yul had just finished his work at the cattle farm, he overheard a conversation between Jae-young and the middle-aged women in the village. One of them was very grateful to Jae-young for helping her, but then she brought up Jae-young's mother, who had abandoned her since she was a child. Hearing that, Ji-yul felt guilty about his attitude towards Jae-young the other day, and he finally knew that she had been living in solitude all this time. Ji-yul then chases Jae-young on his bicycle and offers to take her to the police station on his bicycle. Jae-young politely declined the offer and wanted to avoid Ji-yul because she didn't want to be pitied by anyone. Since Jae-young was abandoned by her mother a few years ago, Jae-young was cared for and raised by the villagers who loved her with all their hearts. And that is also the reason why Jae-young is very dedicated to helping the villagers because she wants to repay their kindness to her. The next day, when Ji-yul was helping the villagers to harvest peaches on the plantation, he accidentally met Jae-young again. He apologized to her for his outrageous attitude the other day. Fortunately, she was willing to forgive him. Jae-young also promised that she would make Ji-yul feel more comfortable during his stay in the village and ensure that he would not feel alone. Seeing the closeness between Jae-young and Ji-yul, Song Hyun became anxious and began to worry if she would forget and ignore him. But Jae-young, who realized Song Hyun's concern, assured him that she would never forget or leave him. Jae-young then revealed that she cared so much for Ji-yul because he had been her secret friend as a child and she wanted to make him feel comfortable while living in their village. The next day, Jae-young and Ji-yul went to the village square to play with the dog they had rescued a few days ago. Jae-young, who had fallen in love with the dog, decided to give the dog a name and asked Ji-yul for permission to let her take care of the dog for a while. One day, the little dog suddenly disappeared from Jae-young's cage and she immediately told Ji-yul about it. Ji-yul tried to look for the dog around the forest near the village, and after a while of searching, he was finally able to find the dog and its puppies. The dog named Nirunji had a female dog and some very cute puppies. When Ji-yul tried to play with the puppies, the female dog, who was the puppy's mother, immediately attacked him because she thought that Ji-yul was a threat. Because of the incident, Ji-yul's eyepiece came off, and he had difficulty seeing the situation around him. After Ji-yul and Ja-young brought Nurungi home, they had to help with the birth of a calf on a farm. Although the task was quite difficult, Ji-yul and Ja-young tried their best to help the birth process so that the calf could be born safely. In the evening, the farm owner's mother invited the villagers to a party and dinner together at her house to celebrate the calf that had been born. While everyone was having fun, Song Hyun still couldn't hide his jealousy of Ji-yul, who had recently gotten closer to Ja-young. After drinking a few glasses of alcohol, Ji-yul immediately excused himself from the party because it was getting late, and Ja-young decided to accompany him home together. However, instead of helping Ji-yul feel better, Ja-young acted carelessly and caused Ji-yul's bicycle to fall into a rice field. As the guilty Ja-young apologized to Ji-yul, Song Hyun suddenly approached them and said he would take her home. Song Hyun was worried that Ji-yul would do something to Ja-young because he thought that Ji-yul was drunk. As Ji-yul was about to leave them, he was surprised to hear Song Hyun express his feelings for Ja-young. As it turned out, Song Hyun had been jealous of Ji-yul not because he was afraid of being replaced by him, but because he had fallen in love with Ja-young. Although Song Hyun had expressed his feelings to Ja-young the night before, he asked her to think about her feelings longer before letting him know the answer. But Song Hyun also asked Ja-young not to focus too much on the matter because he didn't want to burden her mind. Song Hyun then revealed to Ja-young that he had been harboring those feelings for a long time, and he felt a little more relieved after he told her the truth. Unfortunately, the declaration of love made the interaction between Ja-young and Song Hyun awkward because she was afraid that she would hurt his feelings, and they could no longer be friends like before. Song Hyun understood that, but he felt that the awkward situation between them would not last long, and he just wanted to be a special person for Ja-young and hoped that he could make her happy. On the other hand, Song Hyun also revealed that he is willing to be whoever she wants, from friends, family, companions, and even neighbors, as long as he stays by her side. One day, Ja-young returned to the forest to pick up the puppies and Nurungi's mate because she was worried that the puppies could not grow well in that place. Ji-yul, who heard the news, immediately followed Ja-young to the forest to help her save Nurungi's puppies and his mate. Ja-young was so eager to save the puppies that she didn't realize that her hands were scratched and bleeding. After making sure that the puppies were safe, Ji-yul treated the wound on Ja-young's hand to prevent it from getting infected. The next day, Song Hyun approached Ji-yul and told him that Ja-young was injured after she fell off her broken bicycle. Apparently, before that incident, Ja-young had removed some parts of her bicycle to repair Ji-yul's broken bicycle after falling off the edge of the rice field the other day. Song Hyun became upset when he realized that Ji-yul didn't seem to know anything about Ja-young, so he warned him not to give Ja-young false hopes considering that he would soon return to Seoul. After the incident, Ji-yul also approached Ja-young to ask her not to act rashly by ignoring her safety to help him. Ji-yul feels a little annoyed with Ja-young's attitude of caring too much about others without caring about her safety, making him feel uncomfortable. Ja-young replied that she was doing something that she thought was right to do and just wanted to help the people around her. When Ja-young and Ji-yul's relationship started to become distant, Sun-dong, who knew about their relationship, asked Ji-yul to make up with Ja-young. Sun-dong explained that Ja-young may have done something that made others angry with her, but she always had good intentions in doing all that. However, Ji-yul feels that Ja-young's attitude makes him feel burdened because he doesn't want to trouble others. Moreover, if Ja-young gets hurt because of him, he will feel guilty for her and won't forgive himself. The next day when Ja-young was about to go on duty, the police chief, Huang Monseo, asked her to go home and rest first because he knew that her leg was still injured. Ja-young obeyed Commander Huang's words and went home with Gunmo, who drove her home in a police car. At that time, it was raining hard, and the weather looked very dark, so the asphalt road became very slippery. On the way home, Ja-young tried to contact Sun-dong, but suddenly the car she was traveling in slipped and fell into a rice field. Ji-yul, who accidentally heard about it from Sun-dong, who contacted him by phone, became very worried and immediately rushed to the location to save Ja-young. When he arrived at the scene, Ji-yul immediately broke the car window and took out Ja-young and Gunmo, who had fallen unconscious. Ji-yul then took them to the nearest hospital so they could receive immediate medical treatment. Fortunately, Ja-young and Gunmo were not seriously injured. They only needed to rest for a few days to recover. The accident experienced by Ja-young made Ji-yul recall the accident he had experienced with his parents on the village road, where at that time, heavy rain poured down the road and made the view blurred. Because the asphalt road was too slippery, the car driven by Ji-yul's father slipped and rolled into the lake, killing both of Ji-yul's parents. At the time of the accident, Ja-young and a villager immediately rushed to save Ji-yul from the accident. But unfortunately, they could not save his parents. Until now, Ji-yul still doesn't realize that the little girl who saved him at that time was Ja-young because he always tries to forget the bad memories that made him lose his parents. Shortly after that, Song Hyun came to the hospital after he heard the news about Ja-young's accident at the police station. When Song Hyun arrived at the hospital, Ji-yul immediately left Ja-young and let Song Hyun accompany her until she recovered. After that, Ji-yul went to his parents' grave, which was buried in the village funeral home, considering that he had not visited them for a long time. As Ji-yul was about to leave the cemetery, an old man came up and asked him to euthanize his cow that had been sick for a few days because the cow could not consume much water anymore. The old man already considered the cow like his own family. Therefore, he wanted Ji-yul to help him end the suffering of his cow because the cow was too old to be sustained any longer. After the process, the old man said that he had recognized Ji-yul when he was a child and had taken care of him after the accident that happened to Ji-yul's parents. At that time, Ji-yul's grandfather was too busy to take care of the veterinary clinic and Ji-yul's parents' funeral, so he left Ji-yul to him. The old man also revealed that Ji-yul used to play with Ja-young when he was a child, and that's when Ji-yul realized that the girl who helped him was Ja-young. A few days later, when Ji-yul reunited with Ja-young, he intended to apologize to her because he realized too late that she was his childhood friend. But the plan failed after a sudden heavy rain fell and Ja-young was in too much of a hurry to go somewhere. Ja-young didn't want to avoid Ji-yul, but she still felt awkward after knowing he had remembered everything. Ja-young was even too awkward to say thank you for Ji-yul's help in the car accident the other day, but she still felt the need to say thank you to him, and she immediately left Ji-yul. The next day, Sun-dong came to Ji-yul's grandfather's veterinary clinic with his friend Hui-won, who wanted to check on her sick rabbit. After Ji-yul examined the rabbit, he realized that Sun-dong was in a bad relation with Hui-won. Later that afternoon, Sun-dong poured out his feelings to Ji-yul and told him that the girl he liked so much was angry with him because Sun-dong couldn't remember the gift she had given him. After hearing Sun-dong's story, Ji-yul was reminded of his problem with Ja-young because he had the same problem. Ji-yul then told Sun-dong that forgetting something that has happened for a long time is natural, but they should also apologize to the person they have forgotten. But since Hui-won is still angry with Sun-dong, Ji-yul advises him to give her some time to ease her anger and apologize after the situation improves. Unlike Ji-yul, who advises to wait, Ja-young asks Sun-dong to immediately explain the truth to Hui-won because honesty in a relationship is the most important thing. But instead of improving, the relationship between Sun-dong and Hui-won is even more distant because she considers him a wishy-washy person. Seeing Sun-dong heartbroken, Ji-yul advises him to apologize to Hui-won and follow her wishes as an apology. In the evening, Hui-won suddenly came to Ji-yul's grandfather's veterinary clinic alone, and informed Ji-yul that Sun-dong had been missing since a few hours ago and his cell phone was no longer reachable. As a result of this incident, all the villagers began to panic and work together to find Sun-dong's locations in various places. After searching in various places, Ji-yul and Ja-young were finally able to find Sun-dong at the bus stop at the end of the village, and at that time, he was contemplating his love problems with Hui-won. Sun-dong felt very happy after knowing that Hui-won was no longer angry with him, and the three of them rushed back to Sun-dong's house. That night after they took Sun-dong home, Ji-yul told Ja-young she was the most beautiful memory he had ever had. Ji-yul then apologized to Ja-young because he had forgotten her, and since then, the relationship between the two of them has improved. One day, Ja-young and Ji-yul go to the beach to relax after completing their jobs. As the relationship between Ja-young and Ji-yul grows closer, problems arise again when Ji-yul's ex-girlfriend from Seoul comes to see him. Upon learning that the girl, Choi Min, was from Seoul, Ja-young thought that she was Ji-yul's girlfriend whom he had mentioned some time ago. Min deliberately comes to see Ji-yul because she wants to get back in touch with him and she regrets that she left him to go to the United States. At the same time, Ji-yul's partner, Jun-young, also came to visit him with his friend, and they seemed happy after knowing that Ji-yul's relationship with Min was getting better. Min then asked Ji-yul to give her 1 week to make up for her mistakes and make him interested in her again. During her stay in the village, Min stays at Ja-young's house for a while, and Ja-young is forced to accept her because the village chief keeps pushing her. On the other hand, Jun-young advises Ji-yul to get back together with Min because she went to the United States for work demands, and their separation also went well even though Ji-yul was heartbroken by the separation. Ji-yul was also confused why he was still hesitant to accept Min back, but apparently he felt it was because he had fallen in love with Ja-young. The next day, Ji-yul met Ja-young and told her that Min was not his girlfriend, but his ex-girlfriend who had been separated for more than a year. After knowing Min for a few days, Ja-young realized that she was a good girl, so Ja-young decided to stay away from Ji-yul to give him and Min's relationship a chance. Ja-young even asked Ji-yul to be nice to Min when they met again at the wine fermentation warehouse. But Ji-yul replied that Min had long been a part of his past and didn't regret anything after parting with her. As time passes, Min realizes that Ji-yul has had romantic feelings toward Ja-young, and all of that is seen in his attention to Ja-young. But because Min still hasn't given up on her relationship with Ji-yul, she tries to kiss him suddenly, and Ja-young accidentally sees the incident. When Min sees the jealous expression on Ja-young's face, she starts to think that Ja-young has also fallen for Ji-yul. Therefore, when they arrived home, Min immediately asked Ja-young about it, but she continued to cover up her feelings. Min said that she wouldn't prevent Ja-young from liking Ji-yul, but she just wanted Ja-young to be honest with her feelings if she liked him. In the evening, Ja-young went to see Song Hyun to answer his statement the other day, and it turned out she did not have romantic feelings for him. Ja-young deliberately stalled answering because she wanted to know if she could have feelings of love for Song Hyun. But in the end, she could not consider him more than a friend. Seeing Ja-young hurt when giving her answer, Song Hyun felt even more hurt. But he accepted Ja-young's rejection gracefully. Song Hyun had accepted that Ja-young would only consider him a friend, and he promised he would always be by her side when she needed a friend. On the other hand, Ji-yul revealed to Min that he had fallen in love with another girl and couldn't accept Min's feelings. He also revealed that he felt that the feelings Min had right now were not feelings of love but guilt for leaving him. Hearing that, Min tried to respect Ji-yul's decision and apologized to him for what she had done in the past. Meanwhile, Song Hyun also began to accept Ji-yul's presence in Ja-young's life, and now he will not hinder the relationship between the two of them. The next day when Ji-yul expresses his feelings to Ja-young, she rejects him because she doesn't want to get hurt the second time, considering that he will soon return to Seoul. Song Hyun realizes that Ja-young doesn't want to reject Ji-yul's declaration of love, but she still doubts whether she can replace Min, considering she is just a country girl, in contrast to Min who comes from Seoul and has a higher education. That afternoon before Min leaves for Seoul, she says goodbye to Ja-young, and that's when Ja-young reveals that she has romantic feelings for Ji-yul. After reflecting on all her memories with Ji-yul, Ja-young finally changed her mind and accepted Ji-yul's love. Ja-young rushed to Ji-yul's grandfather's veterinary clinic by bicycle, and after she arrived there, she immediately kissed him, signaling that she had accepted his love. Since then, Ja-young and Ji-yul have been officially in a relationship, but they both deliberately kept the relationship a secret from the villagers. They didn't want to be the center of attention of the villagers, so they preferred to have a close relationship. They met secretly and dated at night after they finished their jobs. A few days after Ja-young was in a relationship with Ji-yul, she told Song Hyun about everything, and he was happy to see the two of them together. Happy news also came from Junyoung, who recently began to get close to a nurse at Ji-yul's grandfather's clinic named Jia. The relationship between Sundong and Hui-won has also improved, and their love continues as before. As time passed, Ja-young struggled to hide her relationship with Ji-yul, as she was not good at making excuses or hiding her feelings from others. Therefore, Ja-young and Ji-yul's date plans repeatedly failed as they had to go on dates secretly while the villagers kept them busy with various extra chores. The frustrated Ja-young decided to announce the village hall speakers after she had drunk several bottles of soju until she was drunk. Ji-yul, who realized that the voice was Ja-young's, immediately rushed to the village hall office to stop her action. But Ja-young had already revealed their secret relationship to everyone, and all the villagers only laughed because they already knew about their relationship. Sometime later, after Ji-yul returned home to Seoul, Ja-young was forced to have a long-distance relationship with him. One day, Ja-young realized that Ji-yul was hurt even though he had tried to hide the wound from her. That night, Ja-young dared to go to Seoul by driving all night, and in the end, they could meet again. Ja-young immediately hugged Ji-yul tightly, and they released their feelings of longing for each other. At the same time, Song Hyun became a successful entrepreneur after his peach farming business became famous on social media. A few days later, Ji-yul came to the village and told Ja-young that he would take over his grandparents' veterinary clinic and start working in the village in the near future. Ja-young was afraid that Ji-yul was doing all this just for the sake of their relationship, but it turned out that he had intended to move to the village after learning that more people needed his help at the clinic. Ji-yul also wanted to let his grandfather rest and enjoy old age with his grandmother comfortably and happily. The movie closes with a scene where Ja-young accepts Ji-yul's marriage proposal, and they put rings on each other's ring. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that many people assume that a soulmate is a destiny, and God has outlined all that. However, every good destiny also requires to struggle, just as when we want to take a bus somewhere. We have to walk to the bus stop and step our feet into the bus, because achievement requires sacrifice and struggle.